Continuing our post-game coverage of the Texans and the Colts as Houston falls to 0-2. Chancellor Johnson joined now by Aaron Wilson. And Aaron, it didn't matter who was behind center for the Colts, whether it was Anthony Richardson or Gardner Minshew. The Texans couldn't get a stop at all this afternoon.
Right, when you don't sack the quarterback even once. When you only hit him once, Will Anderson Jr. is on the stat sheet.
First play of the game.
First play of the game. But that's a clean pocket, and these guys are good quarterbacks. Anthony Richardson, obviously, a running style, runs for a couple of touchdowns, shows the talent. That's why they call him Baby Cam Newton, or at least Dameon Pierce does. Then Gardner Minshew comes in slinging it, and that's something. He's a streaky player, and he got on a roll. But he was completely unaffected. There's no pressure. And when there's no pressure and you're not getting anything, and you are a team that likes to blitz, likes to bring pressure, you aren't going to be a very effective defense. I know they're missing a few guys, but that's no excuse. Defensively, D'Amico Ryans was very pointed about this. Step back. That's step back from last week when you had reason to be encouraged. This was not a good performance.
The Texans defense couldn't get any pressure on the Colts offense, but you couldn't say the same thing for the Colts. They were living in the backfield with C.J. Stroud. What was going on with that offensive line there and their struggles?
Right, makeshift line without Pro Bowl left tackle Laramie Tunsil looks a lot different, but the results are very similar. They went up one more sack, 6 sacks after 5 sacks last week. He's been hit 19 times and sacked 11 times in 2 games. Josh Jones struggled at left tackle. That is not his natural spot. With a couple of days' notice, he moves over, did his best. He was okay at guard, but at tackle, he struggled. One of his penalties nullifies a touchdown, and he gave up a couple of sacks. So a tough day for Josh, and he was tough on himself. He didn't want to even talk after the game because he was hurting. He was down on himself, and his teammates were saying, hey, keep your head up because you did the best you could. But their best, including the entire line, not good enough. And Shaq Mason said Laramie really wanted to play, but they didn't feel like he could. And so you don't have Laramie, and you already have all the attrition at the other spots. It's not looking too good out there, and they can't run block. And Dameon Pierce did not go from being a Pro Bowl alternate to sorry. He's just as good as he was. There is nowhere to run.
The offensive line for the Houston Texans are banged up, and so is C.J. Stroud coming into this game. He told us that he was dealing with some shoulder pain, but it didn't look like it out there. He still threw for 384 yards, 2 touchdowns. He provided some of the lone positivity for the Texans today.
Yeah, like Steve Smith Sr. used to say, ice up, son. Yeah, I think he did. I think some ice and some other things really got that shoulder loose. But for a couple of days there, it was touch and go. And it was going to be a problem if he couldn't warm up well. They see that he could throw, and then they were able to feel comfortable putting him out there because obviously they have a huge investment in him. Big picture, if he gets hurt worse, this game isn't worth it. Nothing's worth that. He's one of the most important people in this franchise. I thought he acquitted himself very admirably, and my respect for him, which was already very high, only grew through this performance. Some good passes to Nico Collins, to Robert Woods, to Tank Dell. I think they've got themselves a quarterback, and that is a big part of the equation.
Really quickly, the Texans are now 0-2. How big is that matchup next week on the road against what many people believe are the AFC South leaders in the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Right. They won't be favored to win this game, and everyone will expect them to go to 0-3, but that's why you play the games. And I think the Jaguars are not like a juggernaut. It wouldn't shock me if they won that game. Probably more conventional wisdom is they won't win, and they'll go to 0-3 and then host the Steelers. But they've got to play better as a defense against Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne. If they don't, they're going to come back with another loss, and 0-3 is a deep hole to dig out of. I think they've got a lot of work to do. The only encouraging thing I think is that certain aspects of the team get better in 1 week, but for them to take a step back on defense, that's troubling because you want to at least, I thought that was going to be their benchmark, that you could rely on the defense, that the offense would be the struggle. This week, completely opposite, and that's why they didn't win the game. I know 10-0, they outscored them in the fourth quarter, but far too little, too late, and that's why they are 0-2, and they're in a hole now to start the season, and the enthusiasm dims a bit, and we saw there wasn't a lot of people here in some ways. There was more than last year, but really that wasn't the crowd that they were anticipating. They wanted to pack this place.
If the Houston Texans want to pick up their first win of the season next week against the Jacksonville Jaguars, defensively they'll have to be much, much better. For Aaron Wilson, I'm Chancellor Johnson here at NRG Stadium.